Memphis, Tennessee, in the spring of 1968 was a city simmering with tension. African-American sanitation workers, subjected to years of deplorable working conditions and discriminatory practices, had walked off the job. Their demands were simple: fair wages, safe working conditions, and recognition of their humanity. The strike, a raw manifestation of the economic disparities that plagued the nation, had thrust Memphis into the national spotlight. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., his voice already etched into the annals of history for his tireless advocacy for civil rights, felt a moral imperative to stand in solidarity with the striking workers. He saw their struggle as a microcosm of the broader fight for economic justice, a fight inextricably intertwined with the pursuit of racial equality. His presence in Memphis, a beacon of hope for the oppressed, was met with both admiration and fierce opposition. The atmosphere in Memphis was electric, a volatile mix of hope and despair. The eyes of the nation, indeed of the world, were fixed on this southern city, watching as a community grappled with deeply ingrained racial and economic inequities. Dr. King's arrival had galvanized the city, infusing the fight for social justice with a renewed sense of urgency. On April 3, 1968, a day before his assassination, Dr. King delivered one of his most impassioned and prophetic speeches at the Mason Temple in Memphis. The "I've been to the Mountaintop" speech, as it would come to be known, was a stirring call to action, a testament to his unwavering belief in the power of non-violent resistance. King's words resonated with a haunting prescience. He spoke of the possibility of his own demise, acknowledging the ever-present threats against his life. Yet even in the face of danger, his message remained one of hope and unwavering faith. He urged his followers to persevere, to continue the fight for justice, even in the face of adversity. "I've seen the promised land," he declared, his voice echoing through the packed church. "I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land." The day had begun with a sense of cautious optimism. Dr. King, energized by the previous night's speech, looked forward to joining the sanitation workers on the picket line. However, a storm, both literal and figurative, was brewing. A court injunction obtained by the city prohibited the planned march, threatening to derail the momentum of the movement. As evening fell and the storm raged outside, a sense of unease settled over the Lorraine Motel, where Dr. King and his colleagues were staying. Inside room 306, Dr. King, exhausted from the day's events, prepared for dinner. He was looking forward to a simple meal and the companionship of friends. Meanwhile, down the street, a young man with a troubled past and a high-powered rifle was putting his own sinister plan into action. James Earl Ray, a career criminal with a deep-seated hatred for the civil rights movement, had stalked Dr. King for weeks, waiting for the opportune moment. The morning of April 4th dawned bright and clear, the storm of the previous night a distant memory. Dr. King, despite the exhaustion from the previous day's events, remained in high spirits. He spent the morning in meetings, strategizing about the future of the sanitation workers' strike and the broader civil rights movement. There was a sense of urgency in his voice, a recognition that the fight for justice was far from over. He spoke of the need for economic empowerment, for a more just and equitable society. His words, filled with passion and conviction, resonated deeply with his colleagues. As the day wore on, Dr. King took time to relax, sharing laughter and stories with his team. He spoke of his dreams for the future, a future where his children would be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Section 5. A shot rings out tragedy at the Lorraine Motel at approximately 6:01 p.m. As Dr. King stood on the balcony outside his room at the Lorraine Motel, a single gunshot shattered the evening air. The bullet, fired from a high-powered rifle across the street, struck Dr. King in the neck, fatally wounding him. Chaos erupted in the aftermath of the shooting. Witnesses described scenes of panic and confusion as people scrambled for cover, unsure of what had transpired. Dr. King, bleeding profusely, slumped to the balcony floor, his life ebbing away. News of the shooting spread like wildfire, sending shockwaves across Memphis and the nation. The man who had preached nonviolence, who had dedicated his life to fighting for equality and justice, had been silenced by an assassin's bullet. Section 6. A nation in mourning, the immediate aftermath. The nation plunged into mourning as news of Dr. King's assassination spread. From bustling cities to rural towns, Americans of all races and backgrounds grappled with the enormity of the loss. The man who had embodied the hopes and dreams of millions had been taken too soon, his life cut short by hatred and violence. Riots erupted in cities across the nation as grief and anger boiled over. The violence, a tragic irony in the wake of Dr. King's message of non-violence, underscored the deep racial divisions that plagued American society. In the face of such tragedy, it seemed as though the dream of equality was slipping further out of reach. Yet, amidst the grief and despair, there were also calls for unity and peace. Leaders from across the political spectrum, many of whom had previously opposed Dr. King's message, spoke out against the violence and urged the nation to honor his legacy by continuing the fight for justice. Section 7. The Unfinished March, Dr. King's Legacy and the Civil Rights Movement. Dr. King's assassination sent shockwaves through the civil rights movement, leaving a void that seemed impossible to fill. Many wondered if the movement, which had relied so heavily on Dr. King's leadership and moral authority, could survive his loss. Yet even in death, Dr. King's legacy continued to inspire. Across the nation, people from all walks of life took up the mantle of the civil rights movement, determined to carry on his fight for equality. The movement, while forever changed by his loss, continued to gain momentum, pushing for legislation and social change. The Fair Housing Act, passed just days after Dr. King's assassination, stood as a testament to his enduring legacy. The act, which outlawed discrimination in housing, represented a significant victory for the civil rights movement, but it was only one step on the long road to equality. Section 8. Echoes of the Mountaintop, a legacy that endures. More than 5 decades after his death, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy continues to resonate around the world. His message of non-violence, his unwavering belief in the power of love to overcome hate, and his dream of a just and equitable society remain as relevant today as they were during his lifetime. Dr. King's words and deeds continue to inspire generations to fight for social justice, to challenge inequality, and to strive for a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. His legacy is a reminder that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. While the fight for equality is far from over, Dr. King's legacy serves as a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, change is possible. As we remember his life and mourn his loss, let us also draw inspiration from his unwavering commitment to justice and his unwavering belief in the power of love to overcome hate.